I thought the worst thing my husband could do was have an affair with my younger sister. Then I opened one photo that was never meant for me. He was holding two newborn babies, smiling like the happiest father in the world. 3 days later, his own mother slid an old medical envelope across the table and whispered, "He was never supposed to lose this." That single piece of paper destroyed everything I thought I knew about my marriage, our years of IVF, and even those twins. My name is Aurelia Voss. I spent my career uncovering financial fraud, but nothing prepared me for the investigation that began inside my own family. Chapter 1. The photo that wasn't meant for me. The photo arrived on Tuesday afternoon, October 14th, 2025, while I was folding one of Gavin's white dress shirts at the kitchen counter and deciding whether I had enough energy to cook dinner. I had just finished a video call about a corporate fraud case involving inflated vendor invoices. The kind of work where one number looked harmless until you placed it beside the right number and realized someone had been lying for years. My phone vibrated against the granite. Celine's name appeared on the screen. There was a photograph beneath it. Then the message disappeared. I had already opened it. My husband was sitting on a gray sectional in a living room I had never seen. He was holding two newborn babies, one tucked into each arm. A pale blue blanket covered the baby on his left, with Caleb stitched across the corner. The other blanket said Owen. Gavin was looking down at them with an expression I knew well. Soft eyes, relaxed mouth. The face he used whenever he wanted people to believe nothing else in the world mattered. Beneath the photo were 5 words: "Daddy loves you both." For a second, my mind did nothing. My body understood first. My fingertips turned cold. My heartbeat rose hard against my ribs. The refrigerator hummed behind me, and the kitchen became so quiet that I could hear the sleeve of Gavin's shirt sliding from my hand onto the counter. I saved the image. I took a screenshot. I forwarded a copy to a secure folder connected to an account Gavin had never used. Only then did Celine call. I watched her name flash across the screen 3 times before I answered. "Rel," she said. Her voice sounded thin and breathless. "I did not mean for you to find out this way." I did not ask what she meant. I did not ask why my husband was holding her babies. I did not ask how long they had been sleeping together. I said, "I am busy." Then I ended the call. Later, I would learn that Celine had meant to send the photo to a friend named Rella in a private group. She had been awake most of the night with the twins and was holding one of them while using her phone with the other hand. Rella and Rel appeared beside each other in her contacts. It was a believable mistake. The most destructive mistakes usually are. My name is Aurelia Voss, though almost everyone calls me Rel. I was 39 years old that afternoon, and I had spent most of my career working as a forensic accountant. I found the things people believed no one would notice: an expense that did not belong, a hotel charge hidden under office travel, a story that made sense only because no one had compared it with the calendar. The first rule of any investigation was simple: do not tell the person who created the inconsistency that you have found it. You gather the records first. You find the edges of the lie. You do not confront someone while they still have time to destroy the proof. So I did not call Gavin. I stood in our kitchen and looked at the photograph again. We had been married for 8 years. Gavin had built Voss Mercer Logistics with his business partner, Nolan Mercer. When we married in September 2016, the company had 3 trucks, 1 rented warehouse, and more debt than either man admitted in public. By 2025, it handled regional freight routes across Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Maryland. We had talked about having 3 children. We had talked about raising them somewhere quieter than Harrisburg. We bought a house outside Hershey with 4 bedrooms because Gavin said we should leave room for the life we were building. By the end of 2017, we knew that life would not come easily. There were 2 rounds of IUI, 3 rounds of IVF, months of hormone injections that left bruises across my stomach, 3 pregnancies that ended before I had learned how to believe they might last. I could still remember one afternoon in a clinic waiting room when Gavin took my hand and pressed his thumb over my knuckles. "Whatever happens, we face it together," he said. I had believed him. 3 weeks before Celine sent me the photograph, Gavin had sat across from me at the kitchen table and suggested we place a $14,000 deposit on another IVF cycle. He said we should not give up just because we were tired. Now I was looking at him holding 2 children with my younger sister. The betrayal was not only that he had created a family somewhere else, it was that he had been willing to let me put my body through one more procedure for a marriage he had already abandoned in secret. At 6:30 that evening, a text from Gavin appeared. He said the meeting in Pittsburgh was running longer than expected and he would be home in 3 days. I opened the shared business calendar he had used for years. There was no Pittsburgh meeting. There was no client event. There was not even a freight review scheduled in Western Pennsylvania. I closed the calendar and did not reply. 2 days later, I sat in the Harrisburg office of Mason Keene, a family law attorney who specialized in divorces involving privately held businesses. His office smelled faintly of coffee and printer paper. He listened without interrupting while I placed the photograph, Celine's call log, and Gavin's Pittsburgh message in front of him. When I finished, he gave me 3 instructions. Do not confront him before you have a safe plan. Do not hide or move marital assets. Only preserve documents you are legally allowed to access. Then he told me something I already suspected. Adultery would not automatically give me the house, the company, or every dollar in our accounts. I told him I did not want everything. I only wanted to stop paying for a life I had not known existed. That evening, I began with the joint credit card. I found 4 hotel charges in Lancaster, 2 night stays, always during the week, always on dates Gavin had claimed he was working late or traveling for the company. 3 of those dates aligned with weeks I had been recovering from IVF procedures or one of the miscarriages. On one of those nights, Celine had brought me chicken soup and sat beside my bed. She had held my hand while I cried. She told me I was stronger than she could ever be. Now I knew she had not been standing outside my pain. She had been helping create it. I did not keep collecting identical charges just to make the file thicker. One fact mattered more than 10 repeated examples. Near the bottom of the account history, I found a payment for $2,800 to Lancaster Women's Center. The payment had been made 2 months before the twins were born. Gavin had labeled it Regional Vendor Deposit. The next morning, I called the hospital's public switchboard. I did not ask for patient information. I did not mention Celine. I only asked whether Lancaster Women's Center provided vendor services to Voss Mercer Logistics. The receptionist said no. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I added the payment to the file. Gavin had used our money to help pay for my sister's pregnancy. At the same time, he had been asking me to prepare $14,000 for another round of IVF. I sent the photograph, the hotel dates, and the hospital payment to Mason. Then I shut down my computer. A moment later, headlights swept across the living room wall. A car door closed outside. Gavin had come home 2 days early. Chapter 2. Everything I paid for without knowing. The garage door opened, and I heard Gavin's keys hit the small ceramic bowl by the entryway. I had less than 10 seconds to close the folder on my laptop, slide it beneath a stack of client reports, and arrange my face into something that did not reveal I had just discovered my husband had helped pay for my sister's pregnancy. He walked into the kitchen carrying his overnight bag. "You are still working?" he said. I nodded toward the laptop. A deadline moved up. He set the bag beside the pantry, crossed the room, and kissed my forehead. The gesture was so familiar that my body almost responded before my mind stopped it. He smelled like hotel soap and the cedar cologne Celine had once bought him for Christmas. I had watched her hand him that bottle across my parents' dining table. She had smiled when he opened it and said she knew he would like it. At the time, I had thought she was being thoughtful. Now, every old kindness felt like evidence waiting to be reclassified. Gavin opened the refrigerator and looked inside as if he had simply returned from an ordinary business trip. "Did you hear back from the clinic?" he asked. "About the next cycle?" I stared at the back of his shirt. 3 weeks earlier, he had sat across from me at this same counter and said we should not let exhaustion make the decision for us. He had spoken about $14,000 as if it were the price of hope. Now I knew he had been using our money to build a life somewhere else. "Not yet," I said. He turned toward me. "We should decide soon. They said the schedule fills up fast." There was concern in his voice. He had practiced it for years. I wondered whether he had used that same voice with Celine in the hospital. I told him I needed to finish my report. He nodded, placed his phone face down on the counter, and carried his bag directly to the laundry room. He had never unpacked immediately after a trip. That night he did. He put every shirt, pair of pants, and towel into the washing machine before he even showered. Then he gave me a detailed account of a client dinner in Pittsburgh that had never happened. The restaurant had been crowded. The warehouse manager had complained about fuel costs. Traffic on the turnpike had been terrible. The lie came with enough ordinary details to make it sound lived in. I listened without correcting him. When he went upstairs, I moved my laptop and work files into the small office at the back of the house. I told him the fraud report had become urgent, and I would probably sleep on the daybed. He looked disappointed for exactly 1 second. Then he said he understood. I locked the office door after midnight. Harper Linwood knew where I was. Mason knew Gavin had returned. My passport, medication, financial records, and a change of clothes were packed in a canvas bag beneath the desk. I was not planning to stay in the house longer than necessary, but I needed a few more days. For 8 years, I had managed nearly every invisible part of our marriage. I scheduled the appointments. I called insurance companies. I tracked medication shipments and built spreadsheets for injection times. I changed client meetings after procedures and answered family questions when Gavin said he could not handle another conversation. After insurance, we had spent approximately $78,400 on fertility treatment. I knew the number because I knew every number. I knew which credit card had covered the first IUI. I knew which transfer had paid the embryology lab. I knew how much unpaid time I had taken after the second miscarriage because Gavin had forgotten to submit the disability paperwork he promised to handle. He always said we were doing this together. Together usually meant I managed the process and he arrived for the moments someone else could see. Sometime after 2 in the morning, I heard his breathing settle in the bedroom. I went into the bathroom and opened the lowest drawer beneath the sink. Inside were old alcohol pads, sealed syringes, 2 boxes of medication we had never used, and a photograph from the 3rd pregnancy. The image was small and grainy. There was barely anything visible, but I remembered staring at it as if love alone could keep a heartbeat from disappearing. Beneath it was the clinic estimate for the next cycle, $14,000 due before treatment began. After the 3rd loss, I had cried against Gavin's chest and apologized. I had told him I was sorry my body kept failing us. He had stroked my hair and said none of it was my fault. By then, he had already been sleeping with Celine for several months. I sat on the bathroom floor and let myself cry. Not because I wanted him back, not because I believed the marriage could be saved. I cried because I finally understood how completely I had carried hope for both of us while he quietly invested in another future. The next morning, I called Harper. She and I had met our freshman year of college when she had found me sitting outside a locked lecture hall and informed me that anyone organized enough to arrive 40 minutes early deserved coffee. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked only 3 questions. Do you need somewhere to stay? Do you need me to hold copies of the documents? Do you want me nearby when he is served? I told her yes to the second, and probably to the first. That afternoon, I gave her an encrypted drive and the spare canvas bag. Then I went back to the records. I did not need to find every receipt. Patterns mattered more than volume. By the end of the day, I had identified approximately $31,700 in marital funds connected to Celine. Rent payments, baby furniture, medical expenses, monthly transfers labeled family assistance. The most important document was not a receipt. It was an 18-month lease for a 2-bedroom apartment in Lancaster, signed in July 2025. Gavin was listed as a financial guarantor. An email attached to the lease included one sentence: "Requested move-in after the twins arrive." That was not temporary housing. It was a plan. I found another thread in a shared cloud folder Gavin had never removed me from. The messages were old enough that he must have forgotten they were there. Near the end of 2024, Celine had written that she could not keep waiting for him to choose. Gavin replied that things at home needed to stabilize first. For several weeks after that, the messages stopped. Then they resumed. I saved the dates without trying to explain the gap. My work had taught me not to fill empty spaces with assumptions. Sometimes missing information became important later. Among the tax documents Gavin had previously given me, I also found about $6,850 in Lancaster hotel food and transportation costs, categorized as business travel. I sent the records to Mason. He called within an hour. If the company paid these, Gavin may have to reimburse the business, he said. That is separate from the marital funds and separate from the value of his ownership interest. I understand. Do not contact Nolan Mercer. I was not planning to. And do not use this as leverage. I will not. That evening, Gavin was at the kitchen table when an email notification appeared on his laptop. I saw Nolan's name before Gavin closed the screen. He looked at me. "Have you been going through the tax records?" he asked. I set a glass of water on the counter. I always check everything before I put my name on it. His expression changed. Not enough to become an accusation, just enough for both of us to understand the house was no longer as quiet as he believed. An hour later, my mother called. Evelyn said Celine had told her there was a complicated family situation. "Are you angry because she did not tell you she was pregnant?" she asked. I looked toward the hallway where Gavin was pretending to read email. "You should ask Celine who the father is," I said. My mother went silent. A few minutes later, my father sent a message. "Your mother says something is wrong. Are you safe?" I told Grant I was safe, but not ready to explain. The next afternoon, Mason called to say the divorce complaint was being prepared. Gavin would be served through the proper process after I had left the house safely. I thanked him and ended the call. My phone rang again before I could put it down. This time, Lenora Voss's name appeared. Gavin's mother had always been composed, even during emergencies. Her voice now was so unsteady that I almost did not recognize it. "Rel," she said, "before you say anything to Gavin, I need you to meet me." "Why?" "Because there is something about those babies Gavin does not know." I gripped the edge of the desk. Lenora took a breath. "And there is something about the last 8 years that you were never allowed to know either." We agreed to meet at a coffee shop in Camp Hill the next morning. After the call ended, I sat alone in the locked office and stared at the documents spread across my desk. For the first time since Celine sent the photograph, I understood that the affair might not be the largest secret in my marriage. Chapter 3. The letter his mother kept. Lenora was already seated when I arrived at the coffee shop in Camp Hill the next morning. She had chosen a table near the back, away from the windows and the line at the counter. A paper cup sat untouched between her hands. Lenora had spent 30 years teaching high school English, and she had always carried herself like someone who knew how to control a room without raising her voice. That morning, she could not keep the lid from trembling. I took the chair across from her. She looked at me for several seconds before speaking. "I should have told you years ago." I did not ask her to start at the beginning. People rarely began there when they had been hiding something for a long time. "What did you keep from us?" She lowered her eyes to the cup. In 2017, Gavin was still using our address for some insurance and medical mail. You two had just moved and he never updated everything at once. I remembered that period. The half-unpacked boxes, the new mortgage, the first specialist appointments squeezed between work and moving furniture. Lenora reached into her purse and placed a folded photocopy on the table. A letter came from Rowe Reproductive Medicine. It was addressed to Gavin. I opened it without looking closely. Her voice tightened. It contained the results of one of his tests. I looked down at the copy but did not touch it yet. What did it say? That he had severe male factor infertility. The count was very low. The motility was poor. The doctor recommended repeating the test and discussing ICSI and other options. She raised her eyes. It did not say he could never father a child. The distinction mattered. It also did nothing to soften what came next. Why did you keep it? Lenora pressed both palms against the paper cup. I was afraid of what it would do to him. Gavin had always tied so much of himself to being capable, being the one who solved things. I thought he would hear that result and believe it meant he was less of a man. So you decided he did not deserve to know. I told myself I would wait a few days. Her voice broke. Then you lost the first pregnancy. I kept thinking there would be a better time, a kinder time. There was never going to be a kind time. I know. She said it immediately. No defense, no attempt to soften the words. Lenora explained that the clinic had called Gavin after the letter was sent, but he missed the call. A follow-up appointment was scheduled and later canceled after the miscarriage. Within the year, our insurance changed and we moved to another treatment group. She had not erased a record. She had not asked a doctor to lie. She had only taken one envelope out of circulation and then allowed silence to do the rest. It was a smaller action than the conspiracy I had imagined. The consequences were not smaller. You knew I blamed myself. Lenora closed her eyes. Yes. You knew I apologized to him. Yes. You heard me say my body was failing us. Her face tightened. Yes. I sat back. The anger did not arrive like heat. It came as clarity. You did not protect Gavin. You transferred the pain to me so he would not have to feel it. Lenora looked down. I know that now. No. You knew enough then. You just believed his pain mattered more than mine. She did not argue. For several seconds, the only sound between us was the espresso machine behind the counter. Then Lenora said, there was something else. At a family party in the spring of 2024, she had seen Selena leaving Gavin's home office. Gavin came out a minute later. Selena had looked flushed. Gavin had looked irritated. When Lenora asked what they were doing, he said Celine had been discussing an event for the company. I thought it looked wrong, Lenora said. I told myself I was imagining it, because asking might have damaged the family. Yes, the family was already damaged. I understand that. I looked at the woman across from me and finally understood that the letter was not the only secret she had protected. Silence was how Lenora handled any truth that might cause her son pain. She called it love because control sounded uglier. I need the original letter, I said. She nodded. And I need a written statement. When you received it, when you opened it, and how long you kept it. I will give you both. You should not write what you think happened, only what you personally did and saw. I understand. She did not ask whether I could forgive her. That was the first responsible thing she had done since the conversation began. Later that afternoon, I contacted Roe Reproductive Medicine. The clinic confirmed my identity and arranged access to the portions of our old treatment records I was legally entitled to receive. Dr. Vivian Rowe agreed to meet with me after reviewing the file. Her office looked almost exactly as it had 8 years earlier. Soft gray walls, watercolor landscapes, furniture chosen to make difficult conversations feel less clinical. Dr. Rowe was 58 now, with silver threaded through her dark hair. She placed a folder on the desk. I want to be clear about what this report does and does not mean. I nodded. It showed severe male factor infertility in 2017. That would have made natural conception less likely, but not impossible. It also does not tell us what Gavin's fertility status is today. And it cannot tell us whether the twins are his. No. Only current testing and a DNA test could answer that. She explained that the clinic had sent the letter, attempted a phone call, and scheduled follow-up. When the appointment was canceled, the communication process had failed. We should have made a stronger effort to ensure the results were discussed directly, she said. I am sorry that did not happen. You did not agree to hide it? No. There was no dramatic medical conspiracy, only a frightened mother, a missed call, a canceled appointment, and a healthcare system that assumed someone else had completed the conversation. I read through the old notes. No doctor had written that I was the sole cause of our infertility. No report said my body alone had failed. But the injections had gone into my skin. The procedures had happened to me. The pregnancies had ended inside my body. So I had converted every loss into evidence against myself. Gavin had watched me do it. He might not have known about the letter, but he had known how completely I carried the blame. He had accepted my apologies without ever asking why I believed I owed them. I sat in my car outside the clinic with the folder on the passenger seat. Relief came first, then shame for feeling relieved. I stared through the windshield until both feelings settled into something quieter. Even if every fertility problem had come from me, Gavin still had no right to betray me. The report did not make me more worthy of honesty. It only proved I had been denied the information required to understand my own life. I called Mason. "Do not use the medical file as leverage," he said. "Do not share it publicly, and do not involve yourself in the paternity issue beyond anything that affects marital finances." "I will not." "Are you planning to tell Gavin?" "No." There was a short pause. "Who is his mother?" That Saturday afternoon, I drove to Lenora's house in Mechanicsburg to collect the original letter and her signed statement. I was not going there for a confrontation. Lenora told me Gavin planned to bring Celine and the twins later that evening. According to her, they were not expected for more than an hour. The original envelope was worn along the edges. Lenora placed it beside the statement on the dining room table. "I kept touching it over the years," she said, as if touching it counted as deciding. It did not. I know. I had just put the documents into my folder when tires rolled over the gravel outside. Lenora looked toward the window. "They are early." I stood. "I am leaving. There is a back door through the kitchen." I picked up my bag and moved toward the hallway. Before I reached the kitchen, the front door opened. Celine stepped inside, carrying an infant seat. She saw me and stopped. The color drained from her face. Gavin entered behind her with the second carrier. He looked at me, then at his mother, then at the open folder in my hand. No one spoke. None of us had been given enough time to prepare another lie. On the table between us lay the medical envelope Lenora had hidden for 8 years. Chapter 4. She didn't tell you. Gavin set the infant carrier down slowly, as if one sudden movement might cause the room to collapse around him. "What are you doing here?" I held the folder against my side. "I came to collect something you should have received 8 years ago." His eyes shifted from me to Lenora, then to the envelope on the table. Celine was still standing in the entryway, with Owen's carrier hooked over her arm. Caleb slept in the second seat near Gavin's feet. Lenora moved first. "Keep your voices down," she said. "The babies should not be in the middle of this." She carried Caleb into the dining room, where she had already set up 2 portable bassinets for the visit. Celine followed with Owen and placed him beside his brother. The rooms were connected by a wide doorway, and the baby monitor sat on the edge of the table. When Celine returned, she remained close enough to see both children. Gavin looked at me again. "I can explain." "You have had almost 3 years to explain." His jaw tightened. He turned toward his mother, clearly searching for a part of the situation he could still control. "Mom, these are your grandsons." Lenora looked through the doorway at Caleb and Owen. Then she looked at Celine. Her voice dropped so low that Gavin leaned closer to hear her. "She didn't tell you?" Gavin went still. "Tell me. What?" Celine frowned. "I don't know what she is talking about." Lenora picked up the envelope. "This was mailed to you in 2017. She placed it in Gavin's hand. "It came to our house because you were still using our address for some medical and insurance records. I opened it by mistake." Gavin stared at the envelope. Lenora continued before she lost her nerve. "It was from Rowe Reproductive Medicine. I read the results. I kept the letter. He unfolded the pages. His eyes moved over the report once, then returned to the beginning. I watched disbelief become comprehension. The muscles around his mouth tightened. Color rose along his neck. He read the same section again, slower this time. This says the problem was mine. Lenora's eyes filled. It says you had severe male factor infertility. It did not say conception was impossible. You knew this. Yes. For 8 years. Yes. Gavin lowered the paper. You let us believe it was her. Lenora did not look away. I was afraid of what the result would do to you. He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. So you watched her go through all of that instead. I know what I did. No, you do not. His voice rose. Lenora glanced toward the dining room. Lower your voice. You do not get to tell me to lower my voice. Caleb stirred in the other room, and Selene moved toward the doorway before he settled again. Gavin turned toward me. You knew. I found out a few days ago. Why did you not tell me? Because it was never my responsibility to rescue you from a secret your mother created. He flinched as if I had struck him. Lenora pressed one hand against the table. I knew Aurelia blamed herself. I heard her apologize to you. I still said nothing. Gavin looked back at her. You let her keep doing treatments. I told myself I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself. Lenora closed her eyes. Yes, that single answer silenced him more effectively than any defense could have. Selene stepped closer to the table. What does this mean for Caleb and Owen? I said nothing. The answer did not belong to me. Lenora looked at her. This report is 8 years old. It does not prove anything about the twins. Gavin would need current testing, and the children would need a DNA test. Selene crossed her arms tightly. When I became pregnant, I believed Gavin was the father. The wording caught my attention. Not he was the father. She believed he was. Gavin heard it too. What does that mean? Selene's face changed. It means exactly what I said. Were you with anyone else? You read one medical report and now you are questioning me? I asked you a question, and I built my entire life around what you promised me. Gavin glanced at me, then back at Selene. This is not about promises. It is absolutely about promises. Her voice sharpened. You told me your marriage was over. You said Aurelia only needed time to accept it. You said you would tell everyone after the babies were born. Gavin's expression hardened. Selene, stop. No. You said you would move into the apartment. You said you would put your name on the lease once the legal matters at home were resolved. The room went silent again. Gavin looked at me. I did not give him the relief of surprise. I know about the apartment. His eyes narrowed. I know about the hospital payment. I know our money was used for rent and baby expenses. Selene looked almost offended. The babies needed support. I am not taking money from your children. I am stopping my money from funding the lies both of you told. Gavin moved one step toward me. I never wanted to hurt you. I looked at the man I had married, the man who had asked me to spend another $14,000 on IVF while he was preparing a nursery in Lancaster. What did you think would happen when I found out you were building a room for my sister's babies while asking me to put my body through another treatment? He had no answer. Selene pulled out her phone and called our mother. She spoke quickly, saying she needed help with the twins and that everything had gone wrong. Evelyn arrived less than 20 minutes later. She walked directly into the dining room, checked both babies, then returned with Owen in her arms. What is happening here? No one answered immediately. Selene began crying. Gavin held the medical report. Lenora stood beside the table looking older than she had that morning. Evelyn looked at me. Rel, whatever has happened, these children should not be around this. I agree. Then do not make any decisions tonight. I almost laughed, not because anything was funny, because even after everything, My mother's first instinct was still to ask me to become the calmest person in the room. Gavin just discovered his mother kept something from him, Evelyn said. He's a victim too. He's a victim of his mother. I looked directly at Gavin. He is not a victim of me. Evelyn adjusted Owen against her shoulder. You need to think about the babies. I have thought about everyone else for 8 years. My voice remained steady. That has only helped other people avoid responsibility. I told Gavin that Mason would send a proposed separation agreement. A divorce complaint would be served through the proper process. I had already moved the things I needed to Harper's house, and I would not be returning home that night. Gavin looked stunned. You already hired a lawyer? 2 days after I received the photograph. He asked to speak with me alone. I followed him into Lenora's study, but stayed near the open door. He pressed the medical report flat against the desk. If I had known this in 2017, I might have handled everything differently. That may be true. He looked at me as if he had expected an argument. I continued. Your mother hid 1 letter. You hid almost 3 years of your life. Do not place those things on the same scale. I lost hope, Rel. I did not know how to tell you. So you let me keep hoping for both of us? He looked away. I opened the folder and showed him the printed email from the Lancaster property manager. His own words appeared near the bottom. Add my name after the legal matters at home are resolved. The email had been sent 3 months before the twins were born. You had a plan to leave, I said. You just wanted me to remain useful until you were ready. That is not what it was. Then tell me what it was. He stared at the email. He could not. Finally, he asked the question I had known was coming. If the DNA test shows they are not mine, does that change anything between us? No. He looked up. I am not leaving because of who fathered those children. I am leaving because of the choices you made before any of us knew the answer. Harper was waiting at the curb when I walked outside. I got into her car without looking back. Inside Lenora's house, Gavin was left with his mother Celine Evelyn and 2 infants whose legal and biological future had suddenly become uncertain. For the first time in 8 years, I did not stay to organize the damage. Chapter 5. The Life. I stopped apologizing for. 3 days later, Mason called to tell me Gavin had hired his own attorney. By then, I was sleeping in Harper's guest room, working from her dining table, and learning how quickly an 8-year marriage could be reduced to folders, passwords, account balances, and scheduled calls between people billing by the hour. Mason told me there were 3 separate problems now: the divorce and marital property, the value of Gavin's ownership in Voss Mercer Logistics, the biological and legal status of Caleb and Owen. I asked him to keep the 3rd issue away from me unless it affected marital money. He understood. I had spent too many years managing consequences that belonged to other people. I was not going to make paternity appointments interpret DNA results or help Gavin decide what kind of father he wanted to be. That choice was his. The business problem moved first. Nolan Mercer reviewed the Lancaster expenses and demanded an explanation. $6,850 in hotel food and transportation charges had been submitted as business travel, even though none of the trips involved company clients. Gavin repaid the full amount. There was no arrest, no public scandal, and no dramatic collapse of the company. Real consequences were quieter than that. Nolan no longer trusted him. Their buy-sell agreement allowed one partner to purchase part of the other's interest under specific conditions. After months of negotiation and a neutral valuation, Nolan bought 15% of Gavin's ownership. Gavin kept 30% of the company, but he lost part of his control and used much of the buyout money to meet the obligations created by the divorce. The $31,700 he had spent on Celine's apartment, medical bills, baby furniture, and living expenses, was addressed separately. Mason explained that I was not receiving a punishment award. The money was simply counted against Gavin's share during equitable distribution. I did not have to pay half the cost of my husband's secret family. That was enough. I decided not to keep the house in Hershey. For years, I had imagined children running through its hallways. After the photograph, every room felt like part of a life Gavin had continued performing long after he had stopped believing in it. We agreed to sell. After the mortgage and selling costs were paid, the remaining equity was divided under the settlement, with adjustments for the marital funds Gavin had spent. I rented a smaller townhouse near Harrisburg. It had 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and windows that filled the living room with morning light. It was close to my office and 10 minutes from Harper. The first night there, I ate takeout on the floor because my dining table had not arrived. I had never felt less settled. I had also never felt more certain that the space belonged to me. My father helped me collect the last of my belongings from the house while Gavin was at work. Grant carried boxes without asking me to reassure him. Before we left, he stood in the empty bedroom that Gavin and I had once planned to turn into a nursery. He said he was sorry. I asked what for. He said our family had become too accustomed to expecting me to remain calm whenever everyone else made a mess. Later, he asked Selena when the affair had begun. When she told him late 2022, he understood that she had sat beside me after my 3rd miscarriage while she was already involved with my husband. Grant did not disown her. He still helped Evelyn with the twins, but he stopped calling the affair a complicated mistake. He called it a series of choices. My mother continued helping Selene care for Caleb and Owen. At first, Evelyn still tried to explain everything through exhaustion, fear, and the pressure of raising newborns. Eventually, she stopped asking me to be the person who absorbed the consequences. That was the most I expected from her. Lenora completed the written statement about the medical letter. When Elliot learned what she had done, he moved in with his brother for several weeks. Gavin stopped speaking to his mother entirely for a time. Lenora never called me to ask me to repair that relationship. It was the first sign that she had finally understood accountability. Then, the DNA results came. Gavin's new fertility testing still showed a severely reduced likelihood of natural conception, but not an impossibility. The DNA test confirmed that he was not Caleb and Owen's biological father. I read the message from Mason twice and felt almost nothing at first. Not victory, not satisfaction. Only a quiet awareness that another part of the story had shifted without changing my decision. During the paternity process, Celine admitted that she and Gavin had stopped speaking for several weeks near the end of 2024. She believed he would never leave me. During that period, she met a former boyfriend once. She later relied on the timing of the pregnancy and convinced herself Gavin was the father. No new man appeared at the end of the story to provide another dramatic confrontation. The identity of the biological father became part of a private legal process that did not belong to me. Mason explained the rest in a few sentences. DNA determined biology. It did not automatically erase Gavin's legal status because he had signed an acknowledgement of paternity. Celine was advised not to move out of Pennsylvania while the issue remained unresolved because changing the children's residence could complicate the proceedings. Gavin had to decide whether he wanted to preserve a relationship with the babies he had cared for since birth or seek to change his legal status. I did not tell him what to do. If the twins had been biologically his, I still would have divorced him. Because they were not, I still divorced him. Their DNA was never the reason my marriage ended. The divorce process continued through 2026. During mediation, Gavin looked older than he had the year before. Not dramatically ruined, just stripped of the confidence that someone else would always organize the consequences for him. During a break, he asked whether there was any version of the future in which we tried again. He said he had started counseling. He admitted that after learning about Lenora's letter, he had used her betrayal as a way to avoid looking directly at his own. I told him I could believe he was trying to change without returning to verify whether he succeeded. He asked whether I thought I would ever forgive him. I said perhaps one day, but forgiveness was not renewed access. He nodded. For once, he did not argue. The final settlement sold the house, divided the investment accounts, adjusted the marital money Gavin had spent, and preserved the property each of us had brought into the marriage. Nolan completed the purchase of 15% of Gavin's company interest. I kept my premarital account and the retirement funds that legally belonged to me. I never contacted company clients. I never tried to destroy Voss Mercer Logistics. I did not need to manufacture revenge. Gavin left mediation alone. His relationship with Celine collapsed under the weight of the DNA result. The money and promises he had never been willing to fulfill openly. He lost part of his company. He lost the marriage he had assumed would remain available until he chose to leave it. Most of all, he lost the person who had spent years remembering every appointment, paying every bill, carrying every hope, and cleaning up every emotional consequence. Celine lost her relationship with me. She also lost the story that Gavin had chosen her because their connection was somehow more honest than our marriage. She still had our parents' help with Caleb and Owen. I never wished hardship on the boys. They had not betrayed anyone. Lenora sent me a handwritten letter months after the divorce was finalized. She apologized without asking me to answer. I eventually wrote back. I told her I did not know whether full forgiveness would ever come, but I recognized that she had stopped hiding from what she had done. We met occasionally in public places. We never returned to what we had been. I did not want to. After the divorce, I began volunteering with the Pennsylvania Fertility Patient Alliance. I helped women review IVF bills, request records, and ask questions when medical or financial information did not make sense. A year later, I used part of my settlement to create the Clear Record Fund, a small program that helped patients pay for financial consultations and gain access to their treatment files. On the morning of our first workshop, I placed the old ultrasound photograph, the IVF records, Lenora's letter, and my divorce decree into a storage box. I did not burn them. I did not tear them apart. I labeled the box by year the way I would label a closed case. Then I shut the cabinet and left my townhouse. There was no new man waiting outside. There was no promise that every wound had healed. There was only a life finally built on what I knew to be true. The greatest revenge was never making Gavin, Celine, or Lenora hurt the way I had hurt. It was returning to each of them the responsibility they had allowed me to carry. I was no longer the woman who had failed to give her husband a family. I was the first person in ours to stop calling silence love and endless sacrifice loyalty. Can you understand why Gavin was hurt and still believe I was right to leave him? And do you think Lenora deserved forgiveness after hiding the truth for 8 years? Share your thoughts and stay with us for more stories about women who finally chose themselves.